Welcome back to Afrosoul Diaries family. If you missed part 1, go watch it now because part 2 picks up exactly where we left off and it is about to be intense. We're talking life or death stakes, heart-wrenching decisions, and the most epic showdown you've ever seen. Drop a fire emoji if you're ready for this conclusion, and let's dive straight into the chaos. Sung drove through Brooklyn in complete silence, the tension in the vehicle thick enough to cut. Zara sat in the back seat, staring out the window with tears streaming down her face, her whole world crumbling around her. Every building, every street corner seemed to mock her. How had she been so blind? How had she fallen in love with the son of the man who destroyed her family? "Miss Williams," Sung said quietly, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. "Where would you like me to take you?" "My apartment," Zara whispered, her voice hollow and broken. "I don't think that's safe. With Mr. Kwan still at large." "I don't care about safe anymore," Zara cut him off, her voice rising with hysteria. "Nothing is safe. Nothing is real. My parents are dead because of his family, and her voice broke completely. I fell in love with him. I gave him everything. I was going to spend my life with a man whose father murdered my parents." Sung's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd worked for the Kang family for 15 years, had seen Dian transform the organization, had watched him fall genuinely in love for the first time in his life. But he also understood Zara's pain, her sense of betrayal. "Miss Williams," he said carefully, "Mr. Kang didn't know when he met you. I was there when he discovered the connection 2 years ago. He was devastated. He spent months trying to find a way to get justice for your parents." "Stop," Zara said sharply. "Just stop. I don't want to hear excuses or explanations." He knew. For months, he knew, and he looked me in the eyes and lied every single day. Sung fell silent, pulling out his phone to make a quick call in Korean. Zara didn't have the energy to ask who he was calling, though she suspected it was Dian. When they arrived at her building, Sung walked her to her door, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. "Miss Williams, with respect, I'll be posting security in the hallway. Mr. Kang's orders were to keep you safe, regardless of the current situation." Zara wanted to argue, to tell him she wanted nothing to do with Dian's protection. But she was too exhausted, too broken, and some part of her recognized that Jin Young was still out there. "Whatever," she said, her voice flat as she unlocked her door. Her tiny apartment felt different now, smaller, sadder, like all the light had been drained from it. The walls covered with her artwork seemed to mock her dreams, and the plants by the window looked wilted despite her care. Everything reminded her of him, the coffee mug he'd used that first morning, the book he'd left on her nightstand, the space on her couch where they'd fallen asleep together. She called Sienna with shaking hands. "Z, how did the celebration go? Tell me everything about." Zara interrupted, her voice cracking. "Can you come over? I need you. Something terrible has happened. I'm already grabbing my keys." "What's wrong?" "Everything," Zara whispered. "Everything is wrong." While she waited for Sienna, Zara sat on her floor surrounded by photos, pictures of her parents from before the accident, images of the life they'd built before it was stolen from them. Her mother's bright smile, her father's gentle hands as he taught her to paint. They'd been good people, innocent people who died simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And she'd been falling in love with the son of their killer. The irony was cruel and sharp. Her parents had died because they witnessed something they shouldn't have, and now she was living the same nightmare, trapped in a world of violence and secrets, in love with a man who belonged to both. Sienna arrived 20 minutes later, taking one look at Zara's tear-streaked face before immediately pulling her into a fierce hug. "What happened? You look like your world just ended." "It did," Zara sobbed against her friend's shoulder. "See, my parents, they weren't killed in an accident. They were murdered. And Dian's father ordered it." Sienna pulled back, her face pale with shock. "What?" "Zara, that's impossible. You said they died in a car crash." "I thought they did. But tonight, Jin Young, the man who threatened me at the bar, he sent documents. Police reports that were covered up, witness statements that were buried. My father saw something he shouldn't have, Some business deal between crime families, and Diane's father decided there couldn't be any witnesses. Sienna sank onto the couch, her face ashen. Oh my God. And Diane, does he know? He's known for 2 years, Zara said bitterly. 2 years, see. He knew when he pursued me, when he told me he loved me, when we made love. He knew his family destroyed my life, and he said nothing. Jesus Christ. Sienna pulled Zara down beside her, holding her while she cried. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. They sat in silence for a long time, Zara's sobs gradually quieting to exhausted hiccups. Finally, Sienna spoke. What are you going to do? I don't know, Zara whispered. The fellowship, my program, it's all funded by blood money. Everything I've built is connected to the family that killed my parents. How do I live with that? You built something beautiful from something terrible, Sienna said firmly. Those kids you're helping, the communities you're healing, that matters. That's real. You can't let his father's crimes destroy the good you're doing. But how do I separate it? How do I look at the money, the resources, and not see my parents' blood? Before Sienna could answer, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Missing your boyfriend already? Don't worry. You'll see him soon. And me. Sweet dreams, Miss Williams. Jay. Ice flooded Zara's veins. See, we need to leave. Now. What? Why? Zara showed her the message. Gene Young. He's the one who told me about my parents. He's dangerous, and he's not done. Shouldn't we call the police? And tell them what? That I'm being threatened by the Korean Mafia? See, these people don't exactly follow normal rules. As if summoned by their conversation, there was a knock at the door. Both women froze. Miss Williams. Sung's voice came through the door. We need to move you to a secure location. Now. We've intercepted communications suggesting an imminent threat. Zara looked at Sienna, who nodded. Go. I'll pack a bag for you. No, Zara said firmly. I'm not running to another safe house. I'm not hiding behind Diane's protection anymore. I can't. Her words were cut off by the sound of shattering glass. The living room window exploded inward as 3 men in black tactical gear burst through, moving with deadly precision. Sung's warning shouts came from the hallway, followed by the sound of struggle. Run! Zara screamed to Sienna, but it was too late. Hands grabbed Zara, lifting her off her feet as she kicked and fought. She caught a glimpse of Sienna being held by another attacker, her best friend's eyes wide with terror. Let her go! Zara screamed. She has nothing to do with this. Take me, but let her go. Shut up, one of her captors said in accented English. He pressed something to her neck, and Zara felt electricity course through her body before everything went dark. Meanwhile, across the city, Diane was orchestrating the largest mobilization his organization had ever seen. The legitimate office building that housed Kong Innovations had been transformed into a command center, with security personnel, tech specialists, and what remained of his most trusted people working around the clock. Every resource, he told Min Jae as they stood before a wall of monitors showing traffic cameras, cell tower data, and surveillance feeds from across the city. Every contact, every favor we're owed. I want Gene Young found within the hour. Hyung, the police aren't cooperating, Min Jae reported. Someone with serious influence is blocking our official channels. And we have another problem, Sung isn't answering his radio. Dian's blood turned to ice. His shoulder throbbed from the sudden spike in adrenaline, but he ignored the pain. When did you last hear from them? 23 minutes ago. They were at Miss Williams's building. Get me a team, Dian said, already moving toward the elevators. Full tactical gear. If something's happened to her. Sir, you're injured and you're not thinking clearly. Let me handle this. No. Dian's voice carried the absolute authority that had made him one of the most feared men in the city. This is my fault. I brought this down on her. I'm going. The drive to Brooklyn was a blur of traffic lights and sirens as their convoy raced through the night. Dian sat in the passenger seat, checking his weapons with mechanical precision while his mind raced through worst-case scenarios. When they arrived at Zara's building, the scene was chaos. Police cars, ambulances, neighbors gathered on the sidewalk. Dian's heart stopped when he saw the broken window, the signs of struggle. Sung was conscious but bloodied, sitting in the back of an ambulance while paramedics worked on a head wound that was bleeding far too much. When he saw Dian approaching, he tried to stand despite the paramedics' protests. "Sir, I'm sorry. I failed." "Report," Dian said tersely, though his hands were gentle as he helped Sung sit back down. "Three men, professional military training. They came through the window while I was in the hallway. By the time I got inside," Sung's face was anguished. "They took both women. Miss Williams and her friend." "Both?" The word came out as a growl. "They weren't supposed to take the friend. I heard them arguing about it before they left. But Miss Williams was fighting, telling them to let her friend go, and I think they panicked." Dian closed his eyes, the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. Not only had his past destroyed Zara's life, now it was threatening to destroy Sienna too, an innocent woman whose only crime was being loyal to her friend. "Did they leave anything? Any message?" Sung held out a burner phone with a shaking hand. This was on her kitchen counter. Dian opened it to find a text message that made his blood run cold. "Pier 47, Warehouse District. Come alone if you want them to live. You have 2 hours to decide what matters more, your empire or your women. Choose wisely. J." Attached was a photo that nearly brought Dian to his knees. Zara and Sienna, both unconscious, tied to chairs in what looked like a shipping container. Zara's head was slumped forward, a trickle of blood visible on her temple. "Sir," Min Jae appeared at his elbow, his face grim as he read the message over Dian's shoulder. "It's obviously a trap. He wants to draw you out, make you emotional." "He already has," Dian said quietly. "And I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. We'll mobilize everyone we have." "No." Dian's voice was absolute. He said, "Come alone. If I bring an army and he kills them because of it." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Hyung, you can't go in there alone. You're walking into a suicide mission." "Then that's what I'll do." Dian looked at his second-in-command, the closest thing to a brother he'd ever had. "But I need you to do something for me. If this goes badly, if I don't come back, I need you to take care of them. Zara's program, her students, her community. Make sure she has everything she needs to rebuild whatever I've destroyed." "You're coming back," Min Jae said fiercely. "All 3 of you. Promise me, Jae." Min Jae's throat worked as he swallowed hard. "I promise. But promise me something too. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare let that bastard win." Dian nodded, already walking away. He had 90 minutes to prepare for what was very likely the last fight of his life. Pier 47 existed in the kind of industrial wasteland that most New Yorkers pretended didn't exist. Abandoned warehouses, rusted shipping containers, and the kind of shadows where screams got swallowed by the sound of the harbor. Warehouse 13 squatted at the end of the longest pier like a metal beast, its windows dark except for a single light on the top floor that pulsed like a heartbeat against the night sky. Dian parked his car and sat for a moment in the silence, checking his weapons one final time. Gun in his shoulder holster, knife in his boot, backup piece at his ankle, and the small derringer he kept in his jacket sleeve, a last resort weapon his father had taught him to use when he was barely old enough to hold it steady. His shoulder throbbed from his recent injury, the stitches pulling tight every time he moved his arm. The doctor had warned him about tearing them, about the risk of permanent damage if he pushed too hard too soon. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting Zara and Sienna out alive. He thought about the first time he'd seen Zara, flustered and beautiful in that bathroom, giving herself a pep talk in the mirror. He thought about her laugh, her passion when she talked about her students, the way she looked at him when she said she loved him. He thought about how he'd failed her in every way possible. But maybe, if he could save her life tonight, that would be enough. Maybe she could forgive him eventually, even if she could never love him again. The front door of the warehouse was propped open, another sign that this was orchestrated down to the smallest detail. Dian stepped inside, his footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. The warehouse was a maze of shipping containers stacked 3 high, creating corridors and dead ends that could hide dozens of men. The air smelled of rust and salt water, and something else, fear and blood and desperation. "Punctual as always, cousin." Jin Young's voice echoed from somewhere above, distorted by the metal walls. Dian looked up to see him standing on a catwalk that ran along the perimeter of the building, backlit by harsh industrial lighting. "Where are they?" Dian called up. "Safe and sound. For now." Jin Young's silhouette gestured to something behind him. "Come up. We have so much to discuss." Dian began climbing the metal stairs, each step clanging in the silence. The catwalk was narrow, with no cover and nowhere to run. Perfect for an execution. When he reached the top, he found Jin Young waiting with 4 armed men positioned strategically around the space. And behind them, exactly as the photo had shown, were 2 chairs. Zara was conscious now, her dark eyes wide with fear, but blazing with anger. Her wrists were zip-tied behind the chair, and there was dried blood on her temple from where she'd been struck. But she was alive, alert, and when she saw him, she made a sound of pure anguish behind her gag. Sienna sat beside her, tears streaming down her face, shaking with terror but unharmed. "Let them go," Dian said, his voice deadly calm despite the rage burning in his chest. "Your fight is with me. But that's where you're wrong, cousin." Jin Young stepped into the light, and Dian could see the family resemblance he'd been blind to before, the shape of the eyes, the set of the jaw. "Because you see, this isn't just about revenge. This is about family honor." "What are you talking about?" "My mother," Jin Young said, beginning to pace like a predator. "Your father's younger sister. Did you know she was supposed to inherit half the business? Did you know she was the strategic mind behind half of your father's early successes?" Dian's world tilted. He'd known his father had a sister who'd been disowned, but he'd never known the details. "Your father cast her out when she fell in love with my father, a Kwan instead of a suitable Korean businessman. He destroyed her inheritance, ruined her reputation, made sure she'd never be accepted by any respectable family again." "That's your father's generation," Dian said carefully. "I had nothing to do with." "You had everything to do with it." Jin Young's composure cracked for a moment. "You inherited everything that should have been partly hers. You built your empire on the bones of my family's honor. And then," his voice dropped to a whisper, "then you had the audacity to fall in love with the daughter of the people your father murdered. I didn't know about her parents when I met her. But you knew when you pursued her. You knew when you made her fall in love with you. You knew when you brought her into our world." Jin Young smiled, cold and terrible. "Do you want to know the beautiful irony? She was supposed to be my revenge. I was going to use her to destroy you, make her fall in love with me instead, show her exactly what kind of monster you really are." Zara made a sound of rage behind her gag, struggling against her bonds. "But then I realized something much better," Jin Young continued. "She already loves you. Which means watching her die will hurt you so much more than losing her to another man ever could." "What do you want?" Dian asked, though he was already calculating angles, distances, the time it would take to draw his weapon. "I want you to choose." Jin Young pulled out a gun, pointing it casually at Sienna's head. "Your empire or their lives. Sign over controlling interest in all Kang family businesses to me, and I'll let them walk away. And if I refuse? Then I kill the friend first, make your girlfriend watch, and save her for last. After I've broken her in ways you can't imagine." The threat sent ice through Dian's veins, but he kept his voice level. "You think I'll just sign papers and trust you to keep your word?" "Oh, you'll sign because you're weak," Jin Young said with disgust. "Just like my mother said. She warned me that the Kang men had gone soft, that you cared more about legitimacy and love than power and respect. You'll sign because you think you can save them. And can I?" Jin Young's smile widened. "No, because I'm going to kill them anyway. But at least this way, I'll own everything you've built while I do it." The honesty was almost a relief. It meant Dian could stop pretending this was a negotiation and start treating it like the war it had always been. "There's one thing you've miscalculated," Dian said quietly. "Oh? What's that?" "You assumed I came alone." Jin Young's face went pale. "I told you. You told me to come alone. You didn't say anything about what would happen if someone followed me anyway." As if summoned by his words, the warehouse suddenly echoed with the sound of vehicles surrounding the building. Bright lights flooded through the windows, and Min Jae's voice boomed through a megaphone. "Kwon Jin Young, this is a joint operation between the NYPD and federal marshals. You are surrounded. Release the hostages and surrender. You called the cops? Jin Young screamed. You brought cops to a family matter? You stopped being family the moment you hurt innocent people, Dian replied, already moving. The distraction was exactly what he'd hoped for. While Jin Young was focused on the police presence below, while his men were looking toward the windows and exits, Dian drew his weapon. His first shot took down the gunman closest to Sienna. The second caught another in the shoulder, sending him spinning away from Zara. But Jin Young recovered faster than expected, diving behind a support beam and returning fire. Bullets sparked off the metal catwalk as Dian rolled for cover behind a stack of industrial equipment. Kill them. Jin Young screamed to his remaining men. Kill the women. One of the gunmen swung his weapon toward Zara, and Dian's world went red. He came up from cover firing, putting 3 rounds center mass before the man could pull the trigger. But the move left him exposed, and pain exploded through his left leg as another shooter's bullet found its mark. He dropped behind cover, his leg screaming in agony. Dian. Zara's voice, muffled but clear as she'd managed to work her gag loose. Behind you. He spun just in time to see the last gunman trying to flank him. Dian's shot was rushed but effective, sending the man tumbling over the catwalk railing. That left only Jin Young. It's over, Dian called out, trying to ignore the blood seeping from his leg. Your men are down. The police have the building surrounded. Surrender now and you might live through this. You think this ends here? Jin Young's voice came from somewhere in the maze of equipment and support beams. You think killing me solves anything? There are others who remember what your family took from us. Others who want revenge. Let them come, Dian replied. I'll be ready. Will you? Will you really? Jin Young's voice was getting closer. Because I wonder, will you still be ready when you're watching your wife give birth? Will you be ready when your children are old enough to walk to school alone? Will you be ready every moment of every day for the rest of your life? The psychological warfare was effective. Dian could imagine it, years of looking over his shoulder, of never being safe, of knowing that loving him meant Zara would never truly be free from this world. Maybe it would be better if. Don't you dare. Zara's voice cut through his spiral of guilt and self-destruction. Don't you dare give up on us. I chose this, remember? I chose you, knowing what it meant. Touching, Jin Young said, and suddenly he was there, emerging from behind a support beam with his gun trained on Zara's head. A deathbed confession of love. How romantic. Dian had a clear shot, but Jin Young was using Zara as a human shield, the barrel of his gun pressed against her temple. Drop your weapon, Jin Young ordered. Do it now or I scatter her brains across this warehouse. Dian hesitated, his finger on the trigger. He was a good shot, exceptional even. But with his leg injury throwing off his balance, with adrenaline making his hands shake slightly, with Zara's life hanging on perfect accuracy. Do it. Jin Young screamed. Dian's gun clattered to the catwalk. Good. Now kick it away. He complied, the weapon skittering across the metal grating and disappearing over the edge. Excellent. Now we can finish this properly. Jin Young's finger tightened on the trigger. Say goodbye, Dior. The shot was impossibly loud in the confined space. But it hadn't come from Jin Young's gun. Jin Young staggered backward, looking down at the spreading red stain on his chest, then up at the figure who'd appeared on the opposite catwalk. Sung stood there, rifle in hand, his head still bandaged from the earlier attack. I'm sorry I'm late, sir, he called out calmly. Traffic was terrible. Jin Young fell backward, his gun clattering away harmlessly. Dian was at Zara's side instantly, cutting her bonds with the knife from his boot. Are you hurt? He asked frantically, his hands shaking as he checked her for injuries. Did he hurt you? I'm okay, Zara gasped, throwing her arms around him despite his wounds. I'm okay. But Dian, your leg. Forget my leg. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in her scent, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. I thought I'd lost you. I thought. I know. But I'm here. We're both here. While Dian freed Sienna, who was crying too hard to speak coherently, police officers flooded the warehouse. Paramedics arrived moments later, immediately working on Dian's leg while checking the women for injuries. How bad is it? Zara asked, holding his hand while the paramedic worked. Through and through, the medic reported. Missed the bone and major arteries. He'll need surgery to clean it properly, but he'll be fine. Surgery. Zara's face went pale. Minor surgery, the medic assured her. A few hours at most. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, Dean caught Zara's hand. I need to tell you something. Before the anesthesia, before I lose the courage. What? I love you, he said simply. I know I've destroyed your trust. I know you may never forgive me for what my family took from you. But I need you to know that loving you has been the most honest thing I've ever done. Whatever happens next, that's real. Zara's tears fell freely as she leaned down to kiss him softly. I love you too. And we're going to figure this out. Together. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was hope. The surgery took 4 hours. Zara spent every minute of it pacing the hospital waiting room, still wearing the clothes from the warehouse, torn jeans and a blood-stained sweater that Sienna had finally convinced her to change out of. He's going to be fine, Sienna said for the 100th time. She'd refused to leave despite offers to take her home, despite the trauma of being kidnapped and threatened. The doctor said it was routine. Nothing about this is routine, Zara replied, her voice hoarse from crying. See, you could have been killed because of me. Because of my connection to him. But I wasn't, Sienna said firmly. And even if I had been, that wouldn't be your fault. You didn't choose to fall in love with the Korean Mafia. You just fell in love with a man who happened to be in it. A man whose father killed my parents. A man who had nothing to do with that decision and has spent years trying to atone for it. Zara stopped pacing to look at her best friend. How can you be so calm about this? You were kidnapped, tied up, threatened at gunpoint. Because I saw the way he looked when he realized you were in danger, Sienna interrupted. Z, that man would have died for you tonight. Would have given up everything he's built, everything he's worked for, just for the chance to save your life. That doesn't erase what his family did. No, it doesn't. But it tells you who he is versus who his father was. Before Zara could respond, a surgeon in scrubs emerged from the operating room. Family of Kong Dian? Zara's heart leaped into her throat. Is he okay? Surgery went perfectly. We cleaned out the wound channel, repaired the muscle damage, and removed some fabric fragments from his clothing. He's very lucky, a few inches higher, and it would have hit the femoral artery. Can I see him? He's in recovery now, still groggy from anesthesia. But yes, you can see him. Room 314. Zara practically ran to the elevator, Sienna close behind. When she reached his room, she found Dian awake but drowsy, connected to monitors and in 4. Hey beautiful, he said, his voice slurred from medication. You're okay. You're really okay. I'm fine, Zara said, taking his hand and sitting in the chair beside his bed. How are you feeling? Like I got shot, Dian replied with a weak smile. But also like the luckiest man alive, because you're here. I'm here, she confirmed, lifting his hand to kiss his knuckles. I'm not going anywhere. Even after everything? Even knowing what my family did to yours. Zara was quiet for a long moment, considering her words carefully. I've had several hours to think about it. About what Jinung said, about what you told me, about everything that's happened. And I realized something. You're not your father, Dian. You were 15 when my parents died. You didn't even know about the family business yet. And everything you've done since taking over has been about undoing the damage he caused. But I should have told you sooner. Yes, you should have, Zara agreed. But I understand why you didn't. You were scared of losing me, scared that I'd hate you for something you didn't do. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it human. Dian's eyes filled with tears. I spent 2 years trying to find proof, trying to get justice for them. I hired investigators, followed every lead. But my father was thorough, and everyone involved is dead. I know. Some told me while we were waiting for your surgery. Zara squeezed his hand. He told me about the private investigators, the money you've donated to victim advocacy groups, the families you've helped when you found other cases like mine. It doesn't bring them back. No, it doesn't. But it tells me you are now. And that's the man I fell in love with. So what happens next? Dian asked quietly. Where do we go from here? I don't know, Zara admitted. This is all so complicated. Your world, the danger, the fact that your money funded my program, I need time to process all of it. To figure out how to move forward. Dian's face fell, but he nodded. I understand. If you need space. I need honesty, Zara interrupted. Complete, total honesty about everything. No more secrets, no more protection. If we're going to try to make this work, I need to know exactly what I'm signing up for. Okay, what do you want to know? Over the next hour, as Dian's medication began to wear off and his thinking became clearer, Zara asked every question she could think of. About the family business, about the transition to legitimate operations, about the ongoing dangers and the people who might still want revenge. Dian answered everything, holding nothing back. He told her about the protection rackets they still ran in certain neighborhoods, but only for businesses that requested it, and only against real threats. He told her about the gambling operations they were phasing out, the loan sharking they'd already eliminated, the violence they'd reduced, but couldn't entirely escape. How long? Zara asked. How long until you're completely legitimate? 2 years, maybe 3. There are contracts we can't break overnight, relationships that take time to dissolve safely. But I'm committed to it, Zara. Even if you decide you can't be part of it. And the danger? Will there always be people like Jin Young who want revenge? Probably, Dian said honestly. The actions of previous generations cast long shadows. But I can promise you that I'll do everything in my power to protect you, to keep that world separate from your life. You can't promise that, Zara said softly. Tonight proved that. Your world and mine are connected now, whether we want them to be or not. So, what does that mean? Zara was quiet for a long time, staring at their joined hands, thinking about everything that had brought them to this moment. It means I need to decide if I'm brave enough to choose love over safety, she finally said. And you need to decide if you're willing to trust me enough to be your partner, not just someone you protect. I trust you completely. Do you? Because keeping the truth about my parents from me, making decisions about my safety without consulting me, that's not trust, Dian. That's control. The words stung because they were true. You're right. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just be better. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals. Partners in everything, not just the good parts. Partners, Dian repeated, testing the word. I like the sound of that. They were interrupted by a knock on the door. Min Jae entered, carrying flowers and wearing the kind of expression that suggested more bad news. Sorry to interrupt, he said, nodding respectfully to Zara. But there are some things we need to discuss. What kind of things? Dian asked, immediately alert. Jin Young is dead, Min Jae reported. But before he died, he sent messages to several other families. Accusations against us, claims that we've violated territory agreements, broken codes of conduct by involving law enforcement. Politics, Dian said with disgust. They want to use this as an excuse to challenge our legitimacy. Can you handle it? Zara asked. Yes, but it means the next few months are going to be complicated. More meetings, more negotiations, more potential for conflict. Then I guess it's a good thing you'll have a partner to help you through it, Zara said quietly. Both men looked at her in surprise. If you'll have me, she added. As your partner. In everything. The smile that spread across Dian's face was like sunrise after a long night. Y'all, I'm getting emotional. Are you seeing this character development? Are you seeing Zara choosing love over fear? Drop a heart emoji if you're crying happy tears right now. But don't get too comfortable, family, because we've got more drama coming. This love story is about to get real complicated, and I'm here for every minute of it. PPL stood in the community center in Queens, watching her students put finishing touches on a mural that covered the entire east wall. The painting depicted a tree with roots that transformed into hands reaching up toward the sky, where the branches became birds taking flight. It's beautiful, Dian said from behind her, making her jump slightly. Even after months of being together, he still moved with that predatory quiet that spoke to his training. You're early, she said, leaning back against him as his arms came around her waist. The presentation isn't for another hour. I wanted to see it before the chaos started. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, careful not to disturb the curls she'd spent an hour perfecting. How are you feeling? Nervous. Excited. Terrified. Zara turned in his arms. This is the biggest expansion yet. If the city council approves funding, we'll be able to open programs in 12 new locations. They'll approve it, Dian said confidently. What you've built here is extraordinary. It was true. The brushstrokes and business program had exceeded every projection, every goal Zara had set. The original kids were mentoring newer students, several had been accepted to art schools with full scholarships, and the community impact was undeniable. More importantly, Zara had found a way to separate the program from Kang money while still maintaining their support. The foundation provided funding, but it was channeled through legitimate grants and donations that could withstand scrutiny. Any word on the Chin situation? Zara asked, referring to the latest family trying to challenge Dian's authority. Resolved, Dian said simply. Min Jae handled the negotiations. No violence, just economics. Turns out they were more interested in territory rights than actual conflict. Good. I was worried about Miss Williams. 12-year-old Marcus came running over, practically vibrating with excitement. The news people are here. There's a camera crew and everything. Zara's stomach dropped. News crew? I didn't arrange for any media. Dian was already on his phone, speaking quickly in Korean to whoever answered. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a frown. They're legitimate. Channel 7 investigating community program success stories. Someone must have tipped them off. This is good, right? Marcus asked, still bouncing. We're going to be famous. It's great, Zara assured him, though her mind was racing. Media attention was the last thing they needed with Dian's world still in transition. Go help Ms. Rodriguez set up the chairs for the presentation, okay? As Marcus ran off, Zara turned to Dian. You should go. What? No. Dian, if they start digging into our connection, into your family's business, then we deal with it, he said firmly. Together. Remember what we talked about? Partners in everything. Before Zara could argue, Sienna appeared with a clipboard and the kind of manic energy that meant she was in full event coordinator mode. Okay, the city council members are here, the news crew is setting up, and 3 of your kids just asked me if they're going to be on TV. She paused, noticing the tension between Zara and Dian. What's wrong? Nothing, Zara said quickly. Just pre-presentation nerves. Uh-huh. Sienna looked between them, clearly not buying it. Dian, you're staying for the presentation, right? Yes, he said, giving Zara a look that brooked no argument. I wouldn't miss it. Good. Because honestly, after everything you two have been through, if you start avoiding each other's public events, I'm going to lock you both in a room until you work it out. Despite her nervousness, Zara found herself smiling. Noted. The presentation went better than Zara had dared hope. The kids were articulate and passionate as they talked about what the program meant to them. City council members asked thoughtful questions. The news crew captured B-roll footage of students working on various projects. But it was the moment when 15-year-old Destiny stood up to speak that Zara felt tears prick her eyes. Before I came to Miss Williams's program, I didn't think I had any talent, Destiny said, her voice clear and confident despite the cameras. I was in and out of foster care, failing most of my classes, getting into trouble because I didn't know how else to handle all the anger I felt. She gestured to a painting behind her, a stunning portrait of a young girl looking at her reflection, but seeing a warrior where others saw a victim. Miss Williams didn't just teach me to paint. She taught me that my experiences, even the bad ones, could become something beautiful. That I could take all that pain and anger and transform it into something that helps other people. Destiny looked directly at Zara then. She saved my life. This program saved my life. And now I want to study art therapy in college, so I can do the same thing for other kids like me. The room erupted in applause. Zara wiped at her tears, feeling Dian's hand find hers and squeeze gently. After the presentation, after the city council had voted unanimously to approve funding, after the news crew had packed up and left, Zara found herself alone with Dian in the now empty community center. I'm proud of you, he said simply. What you've built here, the lives you've changed, it's extraordinary. We built it, Zara corrected. Your foundation provided the initial funding, remember? Your vision, your heart, your talent. Dian pulled her into his arms. I just wrote some checks. Important checks, Zara pointed out. Checks that made all of this possible. Blood money, Dian said quietly. Isn't that what you called it? Zara was quiet for a moment, thinking about how her perspective had shifted over the months. I called it that when I was angry and hurt and looking for someone to blame. But I've realized something. Money doesn't have morality. It's what you do with it that matters. And what are we doing with it? We're healing people. We're giving kids like Destiny hope and tools and futures they never thought possible. We're taking something that came from darkness and using it to create light. Dian's smile was soft and full of love. I like the sound of that. Good, Zara said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. Because I have an idea for our next project. Oh, a program for families affected by violence. Art therapy for trauma recovery, combined with practical support, job training, legal aid, counseling services. Dian was quiet for a moment, and Zara could see him thinking, calculating, planning. How many families are we talking about? Potentially hundreds. Maybe thousands, if we can scale it properly. It would be expensive. Complex. We'd need to partner with social services, law enforcement, medical professionals. I know. It would be the biggest thing we've ever attempted. When do we start? Dian asked, and Zara's heart soared at the we. You don't want to think about it first? Consider the risks, the challenges. Zara, you just described a program that could help families like the one your parents never got to be, kids who've been through what you went through. Of course we're going to do it. Even if it brings more scrutiny, more attention to your family's business. Especially then. Let them look. They'll find a man trying to build something better from the ashes of something terrible. I can live with that kind of scrutiny. Zara kissed him again, deeper this time, pouring all her love and gratitude and hope into the contact. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love your heart, your determination, your willingness to risk everything to do what's right. I love you too, he replied. More than I ever thought possible to love another person. They stood there in the empty community center, surrounded by the evidence of what they'd built together, and Zara felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, of purpose, of home. 6 months later, Zara stood in their bedroom, because she'd officially moved into Dian's penthouse after much discussion about security and practicality, staring at a small plastic stick that was about to change everything. Pregnant. She was pregnant. Her hands shook as she set the test on the bathroom counter next to the other 2 tests she'd taken, all showing the same result. Zara. Dian's voice came from the bedroom. Are you okay? You've been in there for a while. Fine, she called back, her voice pitching higher than normal. Just getting ready for work. She heard his footsteps approaching and quickly shoved all 3 tests into the vanity drawer. This was not how she wanted to tell him. She needed time to process, to figure out what this meant for them, for their relationship, for the dangerous world they were still navigating. You sure you're okay? He asked through the door. You seem stressed lately. Zara opened the door, forcing a smile. I'm fine. Just worried about the new program launch next week. Dian studied her face with the intensity that made him so good at reading people and so dangerous when he suspected someone was lying to him. If you say so, he said finally. But you know you can talk to me about anything, right? We promised complete honesty. I know, Zara said, guilt twisting in her stomach. I should go. Sienna's picking me up in 10 minutes. Zara's blood ran cold. She made an excuse to her students, asking Sienna to take over the session, and called a cab to Kong Innovations. The usually calm offices were in controlled chaos when she arrived. Really? You're carrying our child. A little person who's half you and half me, who's going to grow up knowing they're loved and wanted and cherished. His voice was thick with emotion. How could that not be perfect timing? Zara felt tears streaming down her face as she leaned forward to kiss him. I love you so much. But I'm scared. I'm scared too, Dian admitted. But I'm more excited than scared. We're going to be parents, Zara. We're going to have a family. A complicated family. The best kind, Dian said with a smile. Besides, this baby is going to have the most badass mother in the world. Someone who survived foster care, built an empire of hope from nothing, and fell in love with a reformed criminal. What could possibly worry me? Despite everything, Zara found herself laughing. When you put it like that, this changes everything, Dian said seriously. The investigation, the business, all of it becomes secondary to protecting our family. I'll do whatever I have to do, cooperate with federal agents, testify against former associates, liquidate everything if necessary, to make sure our child grows up safe. You'd really do that? Give up everything you've built? For you and our baby? I'd give up everything I've ever owned and consider it a bargain. Zara pulled him up onto the couch beside her, curling against his chest as his arms wrapped around her protectively. What happens now? She asked. Now we prepare for both fights, the legal one and the parenting one. We make sure the foundation is completely protected so your programs can continue regardless of what happens to me personally. We find the best criminal defense attorney money can buy. And we start planning for a baby. In that order? In whatever order keeps you and our child safest, Dian said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Everything else is just details. 3 weeks later, the federal investigation had intensified to the point where Dian was spending most of his time with lawyers, and Zara was trying to run her programs while dealing with morning sickness and constant worry. You need to eat something, Sienna said, setting a bowl of soup in front of Zara in the community center's small kitchen. The baby needs nutrients even if you can't keep anything down. I know, Zara said miserably, forcing herself to take a spoonful. But everything makes me nauseous. Even the smell of coffee, which used to be my favorite thing in the world. How's Dian handling the pregnancy symptoms? He's being amazing. He researched every possible remedy for morning sickness, stocked the house with crackers and ginger ale, and hasn't complained once about me throwing up at all hours. Zara smiled despite her misery. Yesterday, he came home with 5 different types of prenatal vitamins because he wanted to make sure I had options. And the investigation? Zara's smile faded. Not great. His lawyers think the feds are building toward an indictment. Money laundering, racketeering, maybe tax evasion. Even if he beats the charges eventually, the legal fees and publicity could destroy everything. What does that mean for you too? I don't know. He keeps saying we'll figure it out together, but see, what if he goes to prison? What if our baby grows up with a father who's a convicted felon? Then you'll love that baby enough for both parents until he gets out, Sienna said practically. But let's not borrow trouble. Maybe the lawyers will find a way to make it all go away. Zara was about to respond when her phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Don't answer it, Sienna warned. You've been getting too many calls from reporters lately. But something made Zara pick up. Hello, Miss Williams? This is Special Agent Chin with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you about your relationship with Kong Dian. Zara's blood turned to ice. I don't think I should talk to you without a lawyer present. You're not under investigation, Miss Williams. But we have some information that might be relevant to your personal safety. Could we meet somewhere private? Against Sienna's frantic head shaking, Zara agreed to meet Agent Chen at a coffee shop near the community center in an hour. Are you insane? Sienna demanded after she hung up. You can't talk to the FBI without Dian knowing. She said I'm not under investigation. And if it's about my safety. Zara put her hand protectively over her still flat stomach. I need to know what they know. Agent Chen turned out to be a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She was waiting at a corner table when Zara arrived, nursing a cup of coffee and reading files from a thick manila folder. Thank you for meeting me, Agent Chen said as Zara sat down. I know this is an unusual situation. What kind of information do you have about my safety? Zara asked directly. We've been investigating Mr. Kang's organization for 18 months. During that time, we've intercepted communications suggesting that several rival families see you as his primary vulnerability. Meaning they believe hurting you would be the most effective way to hurt him. Especially now that you're. She glanced meaningfully at Zara's midsection. Zara's heart stopped. How do you know about the pregnancy? Hospital records. We've been monitoring anyone close to Mr. Kang for potential threats. Your recent blood work was flagged in our system. You're spying on my medical records? We're trying to keep you alive, Agent Chen said bluntly. Miss Williams, there are at least 3 separate criminal organizations that have discussed targeting you specifically. The pregnancy makes you an even more valuable asset or liability, depending on how you look at it. Zara felt sick, and not just from morning sickness. What are you asking me to do? Cooperate with our investigation. Help us build a case against the people threatening you. In exchange, we can offer protection, witness protection if necessary. You want me to betray Dian? I want you to protect yourself and your unborn child, Agent Chen corrected. Mr. King's choices have put you in danger. Our investigation is going to proceed with or without your cooperation, but with your help, we can ensure he's prosecuted for financial crimes rather than violence. And we can guarantee your safety. What kind of cooperation? Agent Chen slid a recording device across the table. Conversations. Phone calls. Access to his personal files. Nothing that would put you in immediate danger, but evidence that would help us understand the scope of his operations. You want me to spy on the man I love, the father of my baby? I want you to make a choice between loyalty and survival, Agent Chen said softly. Because Miss Williams, based on what we've learned, you may not be able to have both. Zara stared at the recording device, her mind racing. Everything she'd built with Dian, every promise they'd made about honesty and partnership, would be destroyed if she agreed to this. But her baby's safety had to come first. Didn't it? I need time to think, Zara said finally. You have 48 hours, Agent Chen replied, sliding a business card across the table. After that, we move forward with what we have. With or without your cooperation. Zara walked back to the community center in a daze, the recording device and business card burning holes in her purse. That evening, she sat in their penthouse living room, watching Dian read legal documents while she pretended to grade art projects from her students. The normalcy of the scene, domestic evening routine, while everything fell apart around them, felt surreal. How was your day? Dian asked, looking up from a particularly dense legal brief. Fine, Zara lied. Yours? The lawyers think they've found some procedural issues with how the feds obtain certain evidence. It might not be enough to get everything dismissed, but it could weaken their case significantly. That's good news. Maybe. Dian set down his papers and really looked at her. Zara, you seem tense lately. More than usual, I mean. Is it just the pregnancy and the stress, or is there something else? This was her opening. She could tell him about the FBI meeting, about Agent Chen's offer, about the threats they'd uncovered. They'd promised complete honesty, hadn't they? But she could also see the hope in his eyes when he talked about possibly beating the charges. The way he'd started looking at baby name books when he thought she wasn't watching. The gentle way he touched her stomach every morning when he thought she was still asleep. Just the usual stress, she said instead. Nothing specific. Dian studied her face for a moment longer, then nodded. The doctor said stress isn't good for the baby. Maybe we should plan a weekend away? Somewhere quiet where we can forget about investigations and legal briefs and just focus on us. That sounds nice, Zara agreed, though the thought of a romantic weekend while she was hiding federal surveillance equipment made her stomach turn. I'll make some calls tomorrow. Find us a place upstate, somewhere with good security but private. He stood up, moving to sit beside her on the couch. Zara, I know this is all overwhelming. The investigation, the pregnancy, the uncertainty about our future. But I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm going to take care of you and our baby. I know you will, Zara said softly. Do you trust me? The question was loaded with meaning, and Zara could see in his eyes that he suspected something was wrong. Of course I trust you, she said, and it was true. She trusted him completely. But she was also terrified that trust might not be enough to keep their family safe. Later that night, after Dian had fallen asleep, Zara lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about Agent Chen's words. You may not be able to have both. Loyalty or survival. Love or safety. The man she loved or the child she was carrying. How was she supposed to choose? In her purse on the nightstand, the recording device seemed to pulse with possibility and betrayal in equal measure. 46 hours left to decide. The next morning, Zara woke up to find Dian already gone and a note on his pillow. Emergency meeting with lawyers. We'll call you later. I love you both. D. She stared at the note, his careful handwriting blurring as tears filled her eyes. Here he was, fighting for their future while she contemplated betraying him to the FBI. Her phone buzzed with a text from Agent Chen. Any decision yet? Zara deleted the message without responding and tried to focus on getting ready for work. But as she stood in the shower, she felt overwhelmed by the impossible choice she was facing. At the community center, she threw herself into work, hoping the familiar routine would help clear her head. She was leading a painting session with her advanced students when Sienna pulled her aside. "Z, we have a problem," Sienna said quietly. "There's a man outside asking questions about you. Says he's a reporter, but something feels off." Zara's blood ran cold. She moved to the window and peeked through the blinds to see a man in an expensive suit talking to some of the parents dropping off their kids. Did he give a name? Said he was from the Times, doing a story about community programs. But he's asking personal questions about your relationship with Dian, about your family background, about whether you know anything about your boyfriend's alleged criminal activities. This was exactly what Agent Chin had warned her about. The investigation was becoming public, which meant the threats against her would escalate too. "I need to call Dian," Zara said, pulling out her phone. "No answer," she said after several attempts. "He must still be with the lawyers." "What do you want to do?" Before Zara could answer, her phone rang with an unknown number. "Miss Williams? This is Dr. Sarah Kim from Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm calling about your recent blood work." "My blood work?" Zara stepped into her office for privacy. "Is something wrong with the baby?" "The baby appears to be fine, but we found some concerning levels in your system that suggest you may have been exposed to a mild toxin. Nothing life-threatening, but we'd like you to come in for additional testing immediately." Zara's mind raced. She hadn't been anywhere unusual, hadn't eaten anything strange. Unless... "Dr. Kim, how long ago would this exposure have occurred?" "Based on the metabolites in your system, sometime in the last 48 hours. "Miss Williams, given your relationship with Mr. Kang, we're required to notify law enforcement about potential poisoning attempts." "What?" Zara felt the room spin. "You think someone tried to poison me? We can't rule it out. The compound we found is sometimes used in low doses to cause miscarriages. We need you to come in immediately for monitoring and additional testing." Zara's hands went protectively to her stomach. "Is my baby okay?" "Right now, yes. The levels weren't high enough to cause immediate harm. But Miss Williams, if someone is trying to hurt you through your pregnancy, you're in serious danger." After hanging up with the doctor, Zara sat in her office chair, shaking. Someone had tried to poison her. Had tried to make her lose the baby. Her phone buzzed with another text from Agent Chin. "We know about the hospital call. This is what we were trying to prevent. Time is running out." Rage flooded through Zara, rage at the faceless enemies who would target an unborn child, rage at the world that had made loving Dian so dangerous, rage at having to choose between love and survival. But as she sat there, fury giving way to clarity, she realized something important. She didn't have to choose. She grabbed her phone and called Agent Chen. "I want to meet," Zara said when the agent answered. "But not to cooperate with your investigation." "Miss Williams, I want to make a deal." "But not the kind you're expecting." 2 hours later, Zara sat across from Agent Chin and 2 other federal agents in a small conference room at FBI headquarters. "Let me understand your proposal," Agent Chin said, reviewing the notes she'd taken. "You want us to provide protection for you and your child, but you're not willing to cooperate against Mr. Kang." "That's correct. But I am willing to cooperate against the people who are actually threatening me." Zara leaned forward. "You said 3 criminal organizations have discussed targeting me. I want their names, their locations, and their plans. And I want you to coordinate with Dian to eliminate those threats. Work with the target of our investigation? Work with someone who has more experience fighting these particular enemies than you do," Zara corrected. "Agent Chin, you can spend years building a case against Dian for financial crimes that may or may not stick in court. Or you can work with him to take down the people who just tried to poison a pregnant woman." "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," Zara interrupted. "Dian has been trying to transition to legitimate business for years. The people threatening me are the ones preventing that transition. Help him eliminate them, and you solve both problems." One of the other agents leaned forward. "What makes you think he'd be willing to cooperate?" "Because someone just tried to kill his unborn child," Zara said quietly. "And you've never seen Dian truly angry." After an hour of negotiation, They reached an agreement. The FBI would share intelligence about immediate threats against Zara in exchange for Diane's cooperation in targeting the specific families responsible. Any evidence of ongoing criminal activity would be handled separately, but the focus would be on protecting Zara and eliminating the most dangerous players. You realize this is highly irregular, Agent Chen said as they prepared the paperwork. So, is trying to poison a pregnant woman, Zara replied. Some situations call for irregular solutions. When Zara arrived home that evening, she found Diane pacing their living room with the kind of controlled fury that made him truly dangerous. Where have you been? He demanded the moment she walked in. I've been calling for hours. The hospital said you came in for emergency testing, and then you disappeared. I've been making sure our baby survives, Zara said simply. And I have a lot to tell you. She told him everything. About the FBI approach, about the recording device, about the poisoning attempt, about the deal she'd negotiated. Diane's face went through a series of expressions: betrayal when she mentioned Agent Chen's initial offer, rage when she described the poison, and finally, something like admiration when she explained the agreement. You negotiated a deal with the FBI, he said slowly. To protect our family. I negotiated a partnership, Zara corrected. Between the people who love me most and the people with the resources to keep me safe. And you didn't consider their original offer? Even for a moment. Zara was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. For about 12 hours, I was terrified enough to consider it. But then I realized something: I don't want safety without you. I want safety with you. So I found a way to have both. Diane crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heart hammering against her chest. I love you, he whispered against her hair. I love your courage, your intelligence, your refusal to be a victim. I love that you turned an impossible situation into a solution. I love you too, Zara said. All of you. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts and everything in between. What happens now? Now we hunt down everyone who thinks they can threaten our family, Zara said with a fierce smile that reminded Diane exactly why he'd fallen in love with her. And we make sure they never try again. Together. Together, Zara confirmed. Partners in everything, remember? That night, as they lay in bed with Diane's hand resting protectively over their baby, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not because their world had become safe, it probably never would be completely safe. But because they were facing it together, with honesty and trust and the kind of love that could survive anything. Diane, she said softly. When this is all over, when the threats are eliminated and the investigation is resolved, ask me again. Ask you what? You know what, Zara said, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. Diane was quiet for a moment, then his hand moved to find hers in the darkness. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you, Zara Williams. I love you too, Kong Dian. Now let's go save our family. Family. I am sobbing over here. Zara just made the most boss move in FBI history. Drop a crown emoji if you're here for this queen energy. But hold on to your hearts, because we're not done yet. This story is about to get its perfect ending, and I cannot wait to share it with you. The joint operation began at dawn 3 days later. Zara watched from the FBI command center as simultaneous raids targeted the 3 criminal organizations that had threatened her family. Screens showed real-time footage of SWAT teams, FBI agents, and carefully selected members of Diane's organization working together in an unprecedented cooperation. Target 1 secured, Agent Chen announced as the first location reported success. 12 arrests, including Park Young-ho, who we believe ordered the poisoning attempt. Target 2 complete, came the next report. Evidence collected suggests they were planning an attack for next week. Diane stood beside Zara, his hand resting protectively on her lower back as they watched their enemies' networks crumble in real time. His other hand held a radio connecting him to his own people coordinating with the federal agents. Target 3 resistance, Min Jae's voice crackled through the radio. They're not surrendering peacefully. On the screen, they could see smoke rising from a warehouse in Queens where the Lim organization had decided to fight rather than give up. Anyone hurt? Diane asked immediately. 2 of theirs down, 1 of ours with minor injuries. But Dian, we found something you need to see. What kind of something? Evidence. Documents. About your father's operations, about Zara's parents. About a lot of things we thought were buried forever. Dian and Zara exchanged glances. Even now, his father's legacy continued to surface in unexpected ways. For hours later, the operations were complete. 37 arrests, massive amounts of evidence collected, and most importantly, the 3 primary threats to Zara eliminated in a single coordinated strike. It's over, Agent Chen said, joining them as the command center began to wind down. The immediate threats to your family have been neutralized. What about the investigation into Dian? Zara asked. That's more complicated. We did find evidence of financial irregularities, but given Mr. Kang's cooperation and the evidence suggesting most of the problematic transactions predate his leadership. Agent Chin shrugged. Let's say the federal prosecutor is inclined toward leniency for someone who helped us take down 3 major criminal organizations in one day. Meaning? Dian pressed. Meaning you'll probably face some financial penalties, maybe community service, but prison time seems unlikely. Especially if you continue cooperating with our ongoing investigations into other organizations. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was more than they dared hope for. That evening, Zara and Dian sat in their living room, finally able to relax for the first time in months. The immediate threats were gone, the investigation was winding down favorably, and their baby was safe. So what now? Zara asked, curled against Dian's side on their couch. Now we plan a wedding, Dian said simply. And prepare for a baby. And build the kind of life we want our child to grow up in. In that order? In whatever order makes you happiest. Zara smiled, thinking about how far they'd come from that first meeting in the wrong bathroom. I think we should start with the wedding. I want to be Mrs. Kong before this baby arrives. Any particular reason? Because I want our child to be born into a family that's officially committed to each other. And because she looked up at him with a mischievous smile, because I want everyone to know that the most dangerous man in New York belongs to me. Dian laughed, the sound rich and warm and full of joy. In that case, we should probably make it official. He shifted on the couch, reaching into his pocket to pull out a small velvet box. Dian, Zara breathed, sitting up straighter. Is that? I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. He opened the box to reveal the same sunflower ring he'd shown her in the community center, but somehow it looked different now, more meaningful, more permanent. But I realize there is no perfect moment. There's just right now with you, in our home, planning our future. Is this your official proposal? This is me asking the woman I love, the mother of my child, the person who negotiated with the FBI to save our family. He slid off the couch to kneel in front of her, just as he had before. Will you marry me, Zara Williams? Will you build a life with me that's honest and complicated and more beautiful than anything I ever imagined possible? Yes, Zara said, tears streaming down her face as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Yes to all of it. The marriage, the complications, the beautiful mess of loving you. Even if it means being married to a reformed criminal with federal supervision? Especially then, Zara said, pulling him up to kiss her. I've always been attracted to dangerous men with good hearts. Just dangerous men with good hearts? Dian asked against her lips. One dangerous man with a good heart, she corrected. Only you. Always you. 6 months later, Zara stood in front of a full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the botanical garden, adjusting the flowing white dress that accommodated her now obvious pregnancy. You look beautiful, Sienna said, adding final touches to Zara's makeup. Absolutely radiant. I look like I swallowed a basketball, Zara replied, but she was smiling as she placed her hands on her belly. But a very happy basketball. How are you feeling? Nervous? Not about marrying him, Zara said with certainty. A little nervous about doing it in front of 200 people, half of whom are reformed criminals. Reformed criminals who adore you, Sienna pointed out. Did you see the gift table? I think Min Jae bought you an actual small country. He said it was a business investment in future family happiness, Zara laughed. I'm still not entirely sure what that means. There was a knock on the door and Sung peered in. Ladies, it's time. The groom is getting impatient. He's supposed to be nervous, not impatient, Sienna said with mock disapproval. Mr. Kong doesn't do nervous anymore, Sung replied with a rare smile. He says he's waited long enough to marry the love of his life. The ceremony was held in the garden's rose pavilion, surrounded by hundreds of flowers and the warm spring sunshine. As Zara walked down the aisle, escorted by Sung, who'd become like a father to her, she saw their gathered family, her students from the community center, Dian's business associates who'd become genuine friends, FBI agents who'd become unlikely allies, and dozens of people whose lives had been touched by their programs. But mostly, she saw Dian. He stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his hair styled to perfection, but it was his expression that took her breath away. He looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world, like he couldn't quite believe his luck. When she reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Even with the pregnancy waddle? Especially with the pregnancy waddle, he said solemnly. It means you're carrying my child. The ceremony was a blend of traditions, Korean customs honoring Dian's heritage, African-American traditions celebrating Zara's culture, and personal vows that left half the guests in tears. Zara, Dian said when it came time for their personal promises, you burst into my life through the wrong door and showed me what the right life could look like. You've taught me that love isn't about control or protection. It's about partnership and trust and choosing each other every day, even when it's difficult. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. You've made me better in every way that matters. You've given me a family, a purpose, a future worth fighting for. I promise to love you, to trust you, to build something beautiful with you from whatever chaos life brings us. Dian, Zara replied, her own voice shaking, you've shown me that the most unexpected love can be the most perfect love. You've supported my dreams, protected my heart, and proven that even the most complicated stories can have happy endings. She looked out at their gathered family, then back at him. I promise to stand with you through whatever comes next. To be your partner in the boardroom and the bedroom, in raising our children and building our empire of hope. I promise to choose love over fear, trust over safety, and you over anyone and anything else. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, when Dian kissed her as their family cheered, it felt like the universe settling into perfect alignment. At the reception, as they swayed together during their first dance, Zara looked up at her new husband. Any regrets? She asked. About what? About walking into that bathroom that day. About falling in love with a woman who comes with this much complexity. Dian spun her slowly, careful of her pregnancy. The only thing I regret is that it took us so long to get here. We needed the journey, Zara said thoughtfully. The obstacles, the challenges, even the pain, it all led us to this moment. To this family, Dian agreed, his hand moving to rest on her belly where their daughter was already making her presence known with active kicks. She's going to be a fighter, Zara said as the baby moved again. With you as her mother and me as her father? She doesn't have a choice. What kind of world are we bringing her into? Zara asked, the question that had been weighing on her mind for months. A complicated one, Dian said honestly. But also one where love wins over hate, where people can change, where two people who should never have worked together can build something beautiful. That doesn't seem like such a bad world to me. As if in agreement, their daughter kicked particularly strongly, making them both laugh. She agrees, Zara said. Smart girl. She gets that from her mother. And her stubbornness from her father. Perfect combination, Dian murmured, pulling her closer as the song ended. Later that evening, after the last guest had gone home, after the vendors had cleaned up, after they'd said goodbye to their wedding party, Zara and Dian sat on their penthouse balcony, looking out over the city lights. So what now? Zara asked, exactly as she had months ago. Now we live happily ever after, Dian said simply. Do you really think it's that simple? No, he admitted. There will be challenges, new threats, old enemies, the normal complications of running businesses and raising children and staying married. But Zara, we've survived everything that brought us together. I think we can handle whatever comes next. Together. Always together, Dian confirmed, pressing a kiss to her temple. Partners in everything, remember? As they sat there in comfortable silence, watching their city spread out below them, Zara thought about the journey that had brought them here. The wrong door that had led to the right person. The collision that had become connection. The chaos that had transformed into the deepest love she'd ever known. Dian? Thank you. For what? For catching me when I fell. For proving that love really can conquer all. For giving me a family. Thank you for falling into my life, he replied. For trusting me with your heart. For making me believe in happy endings. Their daughter kicked again, as if reminding them that their story was just beginning. Family. I am not okay. This ending has me in all the feelings. Drop a waterfall emoji if you're crying happy tears right now. This has been the journey of a lifetime with Zara and Dian, and I hope their love story reminded you that the best things in life come from taking chances, choosing love over fear, and believing that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. If this series touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we've got more incredible stories coming your way. And tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Team Dian from the beginning, or did he have to win you over? Thank you for being part of this journey, family. Thank you for believing in love stories that are messy and complicated and absolutely beautiful. Until next time, keep believing in second chances, keep believing in love that conquers all, and keep believing that sometimes the best adventures start with walking through the wrong door. This is Afro Soul Diaries, and this is just the beginning of our love story empire. I love you, family.